All right. So this is a path to leadership call, and I have two main topics I wanted to talk about around leadership. And one is addressing overwhelm. And then the second is around leading a team or leading other people that essentially are working for you or doing, whether they're contractors or employees. And for most people right now, it's contractors. So I'll speak more specifically to that. But the first component of this is around overcoming overwhelm or addressing overwhelm, or how do you coach to people that are overwhelmed? And from what I've seen, I've been coaching for, I don't know, a long time. We'll say 15 years. And before that was more like a practitioner relationship than a coach relationship, or a yoga teacher relationship than a coach relationship. And as far as I can tell, is overwhelm, maybe we should define overwhelm. And then we can say, is it getting worse? Are people more overwhelmed now than before or not? And where does it come from? And how do we want to, just as a coaching organization, how do we want to work with people that are overwhelmed? So I would like you to all think of the people that you're coaching right now that are going to fit into this category, because that'll help make it real. So bring those people to mind. And then also bring to mind in the past when you've been overwhelmed, and just remember the feeling state of that. Sort of, we're kind of just figuring out what does overwhelm feel like? What are the thoughts that go through the mind with overwhelm? And then another question I have is what is your personal relationship to overwhelm? Are you someone that easily gets overwhelmed or not? Or it doesn't really build up, we'll say, in you. So over the years, if I look at overwhelm and what I've learned about overwhelm, what I've really, where I'm at in noticing that, it's if we look at Ayurveda, there's a vata component. So usually a wind component is the strongest force. So vata, right, it's the wind, it blows. And when it's blowing usually in too many directions, most of which are upward and outward, not downward or inward. So when it's upward and outward primarily, and this is really different than a lethargy where people are stagnant, because that can look like overwhelm, but this is really different. So when people are overwhelmed, usually there's too many thoughts. There's too many things to do. Attention is basically bifurcating or trifurcating or quadfurcating. It's going in too many directions. It's dispersing. So there's a lack of grounded focus. And so as a coach, you're thinking grounded focus. So simply exhaling, allowing the person to get present with hey, they're okay. They're actually okay right now. Things are okay. There's no immediate death threats, right? There's a sense they can relax in their own skin. That helps to send energy down. So just helping them relax and then become aware of the aim. And that's the focus, right? What's the aim? Where are they aiming at? And so what can happen is that if someone has multiple aims, because any aim, any goal usually requires a number of strategies to get there. It's very seldom is there one strategy to get to a goal. Even if you took a goal like better sleep or a goal like weight loss or a goal of building my Facebook group, Like, it doesn't matter what the goal is, right? There's many ways of getting there. So if there's too many goals, you have to help them find like, well, what's the goal they can actually focus on? So just going from like the many to the one. And that in itself is a coaching conversation, because they might not know. And the last conversation we had was really around, asking better questions. So you guys can, anyone who wants to listen to that can go back. We'll reference that episode in the show notes of this episode. So helping, just asking better questions so they can figure out like what is priority, not what is all the different priorities, but like what's really important. And sometimes that can be surprising to the person. Like when they actually zone in on it, they may like, oh, I actually have to get that done before I can start to work on this. And the problem is they were trying to work on too many things at the same time. So overwhelm, right? The medicine, what we're saying here is grounded focus. So first getting that exhale, it's like, hey, you're all right. Like get back in your body. Exhale, get the prana or the life force energy to go more down than up and out. Because if it's going up and out, this is the other thing with overwhelm is that the prana is not going down in the body like it should be. Because if it is, they're not overwhelmed, they're grounded. And then energy will naturally rise up in a way that's more focused. So the thing about the negative feedback loop of overwhelm is the less prana there is in the body, sometimes what can happen is it's like the more disorganized prana is in the mind. And the mind is up and out. So the mind will generate another 20 to-dos. An overwhelmed mind will generate more overwhelm. Right? You guys have all experienced that, right? Like where you don't take 5 minutes to organize, like what are the most important things I need to do today based on my aim, what's actually possible. How do I actually want to be today? Like, how do I want to flow through time today? Like, let me take that 5 minutes to exhale. There's a blank canvas in front of me. Get organized around my aim, move forward into action. If we don't do that, what happens is the mind's like, oh, I got to do this and this and this and this and this. And then that breeds more things, right? So now you've got the Hydra, right? Where you like cut off one head and then like 10 other heads sprout up. So that's the problem if we don't get grounded first. And for some people, they might need to actually do that physically. Like you might need to walk them through a little bit of a seated practice, because most of you are coaching on Zoom. So just a seated practice of like, okay, let's get centered. Now, let's remember the most important aim. Okay. So once those two things have happened, right, where we've gotten it down to like, okay, we're grounded and most important aim, then Kaizen. You help them break it down into the smaller steps. There's a great image on Body Thrive this week. We'll also put that in the show notes, but it's basically like two ladders. You guys have seen that? A few people posted it. There's two ladders, right? And there's two guys, each are at the bottom of the ladder. And one guy has got like little steps up the ladder, like very manageable, put one foot in front of the other kind of steps of the ladder. The other guy's got to like jump to make it to the first rung. And once he's got his hands on the first rung, he's going to have to swing a leg up, right? And if you're not a gymnast, like that's not an easy feat. And then once you're on the second rung, then you got to jump again to the next rung. Now, by the time you're on the third rung, even if you've managed that far, it's just dangerous, right? Because there's not a next logical step in front of you. You've got to keep leaping. And every time you leap, you could fall. So there's fear. There's fear if we set up bigger risks than we can actually take. And people do this all the time. Overwhelmed people in particular. Remember in the beginning when I was like, how overwhelmed are you? I just want to see like a quick show of hands. How many of you orient more like overwhelm is like you're familiar with overwhelm? It's a natural state for you. Just want to see. Okay. And how many of you are like, not so much? Okay. So we're like a little more than half, not so much, and then maybe we're like 30%. And I would say that's probably typical. Now, the problem the problem with coaching, especially with group coaching, when a certain percentage of people are overwhelmed, is it's a very uncomfortable emotion. And it's because it's vata, it tends to be very expressed. So the people who are more overwhelmed are going to be more expressive, even though they might be in the minority, than the majority of people who might not be overwhelmed. So that's important to notice too, of like, okay, is there, and this is why we use a lot of liberating structures in dynamic group work, because it's like everybody gets equal floor time. So then the overwhelmed people get to hear from people who are less overwhelmed. And that's good. That's good for them to start to see like, oh, there's something I can do to reorient my operating system. My guess is there's some parallels to like people who are raised in very stressful environments where that was normal. It was like that operating system in the nervous system of like, it's because there's a, adrenaline addiction is real. Like that's not a figment of someone's imagination, right? Like we can get very, very used to being in a sympathetic versus a parasympathetic nervous system response. There's an excitement to it, right? That's the addiction part of it. It's like, it just feels more alive. It feels more vibrant. There's a hit that it's exhausting over time. Like, don't get me wrong. And I think we're all familiar with that, right? But there's something that's very different. It's like why it's hard to give up coffee, right? Because it's like, it's a little boring on the parasympathetic, like until it's not, like it's a little boring on the parasympathetic side if you're used to being in a sympathetic overwhelm response. Okay. So the more people are in overwhelm, often they're going to be very expressive because they're more verbal, they're more in their mind, and it's going to have a negative tinge or flavor to it. Right? Because what are the key emotions of overwhelm? Fear. There's an interesting relationship with time, right? That there's not enough of it. So scarcity. Often there's a feeling of not being in control. So that could translate to victim, right? So these are the key factors that are going to be present when coaching someone that is in overwhelm. And what I've learned over time is like, the more I can be okay with exactly what's going on with them, with all that, okay with the scarcity, okay with the fear, okay with that they're in a fixed mindset, okay with that their prana is going up into their head instead of down into their tuchus, as my Jewish ancestors would say. Right? That allows them to actually start to be okay in themselves. And I used to not do that. Like I used to actually kind of like, why can't you just not be overwhelmed? Like just put one foot, right? And I think those of us who are like more pitta kapha, like will relate to that of like, come on, just switch your operating system. Like get grounded in your aim, do Kaizen, do the small steps. What's the big deal? But that doesn't work because that's not connecting. Okay. So back to the ladder, we have the small steps up the ladder is actually the safe route. It's the safe route towards more risk, because inherently what we're doing in coaching is asking people to be grounded and take more risk, take more calculated risk into becoming someone they've never been before. Right. So the way Jordan Peterson talks about it, and I really love this. And I think he got a lot of this from Carl Jung, was basically bringing order into chaos. So the unknown, or who you haven't been, is a chaotic state. It's not orderly because you haven't brought it under order again. It's infinite energy that you have not organized. And so that's risk. That's always risk. And it's important for us to realize that, like when someone's overwhelmed by the risk that they're taking, it's very important to get clear on like, what is the risk they're taking? Because if they don't have to jump from the ground to that first rung of the ladder, say they're on the fifth rung in the ladder, and it's not that people will learn this once and then be like, oh, I got it. I can do small steps along the way. They'll get to a point, they're halfway up the ladder to their goal. And then the next step up is too big. And now they're halfway up in the air and now they got to jump and they're not a gymnast, right? They're not trained to do this. And there's no safety cushion beneath them. And so as a coach, okay, grounded, focused aim, Kaizen. Let's organize the next small steps into logical order, right? And that's how we bring order into chaos. It seems so simple. And what I have found has thrown me off, my guess is will throw you off, is the emotions. And sometimes people will not want to let go of the persona of overwhelm because, and usually it has something to do with, I'm going to say victim mentality, like a victim mindset, which is very strong language and maybe totally inappropriate. You could just say fixed mindset. Like there's some part of them that doesn't have to take organized risk and change themselves, change their personality. Right? Ben Hardy wrote a book, Personality Isn't Permanent. We're seeing it all over the place in the Yogi Detox Forum right now, where people are like, God damn it, I've got to deal with my relationships now. Like in order to serve my next level beliefs, like I've taken all these risks in the Yogi Detox. I am changing. I am different. I am empowered. Now, bam, relationship chaos everywhere. Right? How do I deal with my spouse? How do I deal with my partner? How do I deal with my family? How do I deal with my boss that might be abusive in some linguistic way? Right? So there's stuff that will come up. And so that's why they might be like, you know what? I'd rather just be in a permanent state of overwhelm. And as a coach, you have to help them see their aim. Just reconnect with the why. Why is it worth changing? Why is it worth the risk? Okay, so this other part I'm cracking myself up. I'm going to talk about zebras and unicorns. I'm really going to talk about unicorns. I kind of can't believe I'm going to talk about unicorns. So we'll see where this goes. But we're going to start with the zebras. So I didn't know this about zebras, but has anyone ever been curious why zebras are not camouflage on the Sahara or wherever they live? Like there's a lot of animals that are camouflage. Like you look at the giraffe and it kind of blends into the landscape if you're looking from afar. If you look at a lion or a tiger, they blend in to the landscape. They're chameleon. Has anyone seen My Octopus Teacher? It's so good, right, Alyssa? So good. And the camouflage that this octopus can do underwater, it can turn into any landscape. It's so phenomenal to watch. And you're like, how does it blend in? Does it know it's doing that? Right. So there's all these questions. So how did zebras surprise? They're eaten by lions and they don't blend in to the landscape at all. So researchers were really trying to figure this out of what's going on, what's going on with the zebras. So they start studying the zebras. So they take a zebra and they tag it and they put the little wireless transmitter in it. And then they mark it like a red dot to be like, that's the zebra we're tracking. That's the one we're getting the information on. Guess what happens? The lions take it down. Why? Because it was camouflaged. The camouflage wasn't to the environment. The camouflage was to the herd. This is herd mentality. And fish do the same thing, it turns out. The strongest fish are in the middle of the school. Right? That's herd mentality, right? That's group mentality. So as soon as a zebra differentiates, a lion can identify that is the zebra we're going to take down. And then instead of just seeing the herd, because you can't take down a herd of zebra, but you can take down a zebra. So then that zebra, because it's differentiated, gets attacked. Same thing with the weaker fish, right? They're more they get pushed to the outside, then you can attack. So there's a real evolutionary biology reason over time that fish and mammals have stuck to the herd, right? Not differentiated. And I think that's, it's worth noticing when we're asking people to have belief in their goals, right? And then say okay, If that's your goal, like I believe you. So not only do you believe you, but I believe you. And now let's go there. And to go there, you're going to differentiate. You're going to have to leave. You're going to have to leave the herd you're hanging out in. So this is fascinating too, from psychology, from evolutionary psychology, is more people will aim to be safe than take risk. And so when someone might have a great aim and then they might get scared, and that can show up as overwhelm, right? Because they're starting to leave the herd. How do I eat when my husband's telling? How do I eat with the food that nourishes me when my partner? This is what came on the Yogi Detox Forum a few times in the last week. How do I do this when my people don't like what I'm doing? And there's, I know many of people in YHC. A lot of you are coaching people in YHC who are breaking their income ceilings, right? Like that's a lot. That's more or less what yoga health coaching is designed to do, is to help wellness pros get better results for the people they're working with, and to break income ceilings in the process, to become a bigger version, more powerful, more capable version, more competent version of themselves as a wellness pro. And so what'll happen is in that process, there's a lot of differentiation that's starting to happen, because in order to do that, they have to act differently. So overwhelm, we know we want grounded focus and then small steps towards the goal. It's very simple, right? It's very simple. And if we can make the steps small enough, it doesn't trigger the nervous system as much. I mean, there's still definitely a little bit like, oh my gosh, I got to take this leap. Oh my gosh, I've got to get, like right now, someone in YHC Mastery. Oh my gosh, I have to get a CRM tool instead of just an email management system. That feels really big. I remember that day, whenever it was, 10 years ago, right? It was a big deal. I remember it was a big deal. It was a big deal to invest in the technology. Cause like, it's like, if you start building in a SaaS, in a software as a service company, if you start building or putting time and energy into a database and you look at the monthly fee, like that doesn't go away. That monthly fee never goes away. You'll just add more users. If you grow, you'll add more teams. So that expense will grow, but it'll only grow if you grow. So I just want to say, you might have to look more closely at Kaizen with the person that you're coaching. Because you might set out a step, or you guys might together identify a step. And then you've got to be like, am I asking them to leap from the ground up onto that first rung and it's above their head? Or am I asking them to put their hands on their ladder, lift their left foot up a foot, place it on the rung, lift their right foot up above their left foot, place it on the next rung, adjust their hands, lift their left foot up, put it on the rung. And it can feel very cathartic to coach in that way, where it's a little bit slower, right? And it's the like, go slow to accelerate later, right? It's like go slow to go faster is the way I think of it. The other component of overwhelm is if people are operating from overwhelm to drive their goal forward, whether it's a health goal, a relationship goal, a career goal, a tribe goal, or community goal, that energy will be infused in everything that they create. And I speak from so much experience in this, like, right? Where it was just like, I can do a lot. Am I doing a lot from the energy that I want infused into the goal, into what I'm making happen next? And if not, what happens is you end up building in disorganization. We talked in the beginning about how overwhelm is disorderly, right? It's not focused by definition. It's dispersed. It's bifurcated or trifurcated or quadfurcated, or if we could go up to like myriad furcated, right? Awareness. And so that actually gets built in. So you end up building complexity into reaching your goal or into whatever you are creating, rather than building in simple organization. So an organization is where like a healthy organ. And I've just gone through punch karma and like massive detox. And it's like, it's so fascinating. My organs are detoxed right now, like more so than they've ever been. And I'm like, oh, that's what this feels like. Oh, that's fascinating. Clean, organized, cohesive action, cohesive interaction, right? Where there's nothing extra. There's no waste in this system, really, except for functional waste. So that's an important thing. So if someone's like pushing really hard and you're coaching them, but you sense that they're not grounded and focused, then help them exhale and back up and do it from a different energy. And that will also be a shift in their personality, especially if they're more pitta, so more mental driven, focused, tend to overwork or over effort, try too hard. And this happens, I see this as much in Body Thrive as I do in any of our courses, where someone's like over efforting to find the deep peace within. Right. And so that then itself creates a negative feedback loop to the goal. Okay. So the energy that we do it matters. Okay. So I should talk about unicorns, because I talked about the zebras. So now we get that we're basically asking zebras to become something else. So when I was thinking about, well, what are we asking zebras to become? And I was like, how does one protect themselves? So in mythology, then we have the unicorn who grows a horn, which is a good defensive mechanism that zebras don't have. And the horn is focus, right? You look at a horn, like the horn there's only one. So it's like, it's the third eye of the unicorn. That's the horn. That's the focus. And it grows wings. And the wings are very much like the ladder we just talked about, right? Where it can propel itself. It can propel itself in the direction it wants to go. And it no longer has to live by the rules of the herd. And the rules of the herd are stay safe, stick together, look the same, be the same. There's a woman who lives in Chengdu. She just joined Yoga Health Coaching, Mia. And she was telling us that like as soon as she joined Yoga Health Coaching, she started to find her voice. Like she hasn't even started yet. She starts next month, but just in the process of being around us, right? She's like, oh my gosh, she can feel the groundedness, the container of support that a good coaching community will provide, like a good dynamic group will provide. And then like, she's starting to leave the herd. She's starting to leave the zebra. She's got focus. She's got her unicorn horn. She's got wings now. She's like, I created videos. I'm never someone who like video myself. And you could see her prana was grounded and it was starting to move forward. It was starting to not be just overwhelmed and afraid, but just grounded and moving forward to make something else happen. In Living Ayurveda, it's super practical, it's super down to earth, and we wanted to make a difference in your life, honestly, the moment you start. Hi, it's Kate Stolman, and I'm going to tell you about how the Living Ayurveda course works and why it works the way it does work. A part of my natural personality is that I'm a futurist. I'm an innovator. I can't help it. It's just the way that my awareness works and has always worked. So I'm always looking at how do we make Ayurveda practical to solve for our biggest problems, at home in nourishing ourselves and getting deep rest and passing on the habits to those who our lives affect. If we understand our habits are truly not our own, we say, hey, whose habits affect me and whose habits am I affecting? And can we align those habits with the kind of radiant longevity that we want to experience, right? Year by year, decade by decade by decade by decade in our road ahead. The other core part of my philosophy is around collective leadership, and I take those two words very seriously. I see how there's a whole next level of open-minded integration where we look at the questions that you're bringing, the conversations you're wanting to have, and we build that into our leadership model, help lead and guide our community in the direction of addressing the deepest, most potent
issues that'll help us get the greatest traction in growth and transformational evolution. So that's a lot of, my philosophy on living Ayurveda. I look at our planet, I look at the stresses to our ecosystems, the stresses to our human population, our human culture, and that's what we're solving for. So that's how the whole course is geared. I take my community very seriously, become part of my heart, we want to become part of my people, and that's how the course works. I mean, that's why it works too, is it's even though we're all coming in from all over the world, we have an experience of deep connection, deep community, and evolution together. All right, I hope that clarifies some of your questions around the Living Ayurveda course.
All right. I think we should just talk about this. I'm not going to talk about leading a team. I'll do that on another episode because I want us to have a good discussion about this. Because it is so important, right? Like, how many of you coaching have encountered members that are overwhelmed in the last couple of weeks? Oh, good. See, totally relevant. We've got almost every hand up. Okay, great. So should we start with like comments or questions on everything I just said? Or your thoughts?
I can go.
Yeah, Marie.
Yeah, so what I'm noticing is that something similar to what you mentioned, that in coaching, when I notice someone is overwhelmed, my first reaction very often, or the default, is like, oh my God, oh no, she's overwhelmed. Like, and I have like this spin in my head, like, oh my God, this is not a good coaching member right now. And I even have the thought like, oh, this is not a member I want to work with. And I want this overwhelm to go away. And I'm just from us, I've had this issue a lot in the past weeks, and just from talking about it now, which was very helpful, I noticed like, okay, how much more can I ground to handle it and to hold it? And I was speaking to a friend who said, like, because in my program, they all have a big, I would say, abyss they go through. Yeah, it's not a short, what do you call it? Reckoning day. It's not short, but it's very long and deep. The reckoning. It's very thorough. And I started to get annoyed with it. And then I spoke to a friend and we figured out, okay, that's actually what people pay me for, that I hold them through that. Yeah. So that's been a big learning for me.
That was great. And I'm so glad you expressed the emotion so well and transparently about what it can feel like to coach someone who's in overwhelm, especially when you're like, we're already doing Kaizen. Like, we're all already doing grounded, focused Kaizen. Like, we've already, like, this is not for anyone who's coaching and past leadership here. Like, it's not a new, I didn't say anything new, right? It's just that, like, how do we, like you said, like, connect with, like, this is the zebra becoming the unicorn, and the overwhelm is part of it, and they can't see it because they're in it. They're still in it. They're still in the zebra, and they're like, little unicorn horn is starting to like pop out a little bit, and they're just like, oh my God, it's so scary out there. And they just kind of want to shrink back into their smaller life, their smaller goals, their outdated body patterns. And you're like, nope, we gotcha. We're a herd of unicorns. Come on, check this out. Okay, awesome, Marie. And yeah, I think too, there can be, I just want to speak to that boredom part of, like, when a leader, especially someone who's highly generative and creative, like I know you are, Marie, like there can be this thing of like, you kind of want to create the next thing instead of really walk people through the thing that you just spent years creating. I can relate to that, probably a little too much. And it's so important to just be like, no, like, there's a reason this person is in this coaching course or this coaching program right now with me, because they haven't walked that path. So I might be bored with it, but they haven't walked it. So I got to get really interested with where exactly they're at right now in that process, and just be able to let the system that you've created support, and the group that you've created support their progress.
Yeah. And also to see the boredom as like a signpost for myself, like, hey, how grounded are you? not to get bored with what happened in the program you created. And actually, it's just what you wanted to happen. It's happening right now. People are falling apart and feeling uncomfortable.
In a safe place.
Yeah. And so, it's really about embracing that and making space for it. And for me, it's very important not to think that I didn't create the program well. Actually, I created it very well.
Yeah.
So that we came to this place right now.
Yeah. So they could be right there right now. Yeah. That really does add another dimension to what we were just saying, which is like the process itself should ripen the overwhelm. Right. Like, cause if that's part of their operating system, it should actually ripen that. The fruit has to ripen before it falls from the tree, right? You don't want to pick premature fruit. So the process itself is bringing them into uncomfortable emotional experiences. Yeah, that's so true. I wanted to mention as well, because this came up last night on a coaching call, where someone came in when they were overwhelmed, and I went, and we did the grounded focus, and then Kaizen, a little bit on Kaizen, but like she knows what to do, so we didn't have to like really break that down. It was more of like figuring out the when. So use the 5 habit triggers. So as soon as you go Kaizen, so grounded, focus, Kaizen, 5 habit triggers. 5 habit triggers are a time, a place, a preceding action, another person, or an emotion. Particularly with overwhelm, I would use a time, a place, a preceding action. I would just try to ground action into their schedule. Now, I also use another person. So in this case, I was like, so her husband comes in at noon and she can actually go do some coursework. Like she can actually go to take the actions that'll move her forward in her course. So I'm like, use the other person. So you've got a time, place, you have a preceding action, because it's like whatever you're doing before your husband comes home. So all those things are there. And then the other person, because the more of these triggers I can bring in, the better. That's what I'm finding. It's like, let's trigger load, right? So the other person, I'm like, have your husband say, get out of here, go do your YHC coursework. And I'm like, tell him to tell you that firmly, not as an invitation, but like, go, you can't be in here. And then he's going to tell you what you should be doing, because otherwise your mind might be like, oh, I should go do yoga, or I should go put the laundry in, or I should go call my friend, because I have a minute to myself. She's got 3 kids, right? And it's like, no. Have him say like, get out of here. If anyone's ever tried this habit trigger, it works great. Like, you go do that. I've had my husband be like, you're done eating. Because I've told him, like, tell me, like, if it's after 7, like, I'm not allowed to go into the kitchen. He's like, no, wait, you're done eating. Better be getting hot water in there. It's great. And if people can do that in a loving way, it's really powerful for relationships. Okay, good. I'm glad I got the 5 triggers in there. That was the other key. Anyone on anything, any questions, any comments on coaching overwhelmed people?
So Kate, members? I have a question. This is Lana. If in terms of the pendulum, some clients or course members are in overwhelm, but then they become sort of tamasic and crash. And so what I heard from you is do a different energy. So the overwhelm can be manifested in a tamasic hide sort of thing. Is that correct? Or is it not that?
It's more like stagnation. So okay. It's usually more like complacent stagnation.
Okay. So they're not really in overwhelm and then they crash. But we still
unless that's their history.
Yeah.
Is that their history? Like, think of a specific person that you're like.
Yeah, I am. Okay. I'm thinking about somebody.
So did they crash? Were they doing way too many things, very like almost hyperactive, and then crashed?
Yes, because it was in the beginning of COVID and she had to do her whole business online, and that kind of thing. And So I was just wondering, what I'm thinking is that your steps can be used
Either way.
very effectively that way as well.
Yeah. So when someone's been very chaotic, right? And that's where you're like expending all your energy but you're not actually creating order. So then there's depletion because you're not actually gaining in capacity and competency. And is that what happened?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So then there's fear too of like, well, that doesn't work. Like when I push into the unknown and try to make a goal happen, that doesn't work.
Right.
And a lot of people have that history. And some people have that as a repetitive history. So that's another good thing to see is like, if this is a pattern, and that's why in the beginning I asked you all, like, if you have the pattern of overwhelm, if that's what's normal, then that's what's comfortable, even though it's uncomfortable and like no one would really want to choose it. But if that's what the body knows is normal, if that's the operating system that the physiology knows is normal, and if we use yogic language, that's the samskara, that's the track the mind is going to run, then how do we make that the goal to overcome? Right? So then the focus is on the deep energy. It's really on the grounding and a much more organized focus.
Right.
And then small action. So the action's then going to come from a different place.
Right. Right. But I thought, we could use this with, that kind of a response to overwhelm as well.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same as my point is like, that person is it's still coming from overwhelm. It's not really coming. I mean, Kaphic lethargic complacency is pretty unusual right now. Like it's most people that any of you are going to work with. In my whole career, we'll say 20 years now, like I've seen a few. It's not common. And especially because most people who are actually you're working with or getting help have already sought help. They're usually, if they're overwhelmed, they're coming from a place of depletion, not from excess. Even if they're carrying excess body weight, even if they have a ton of ama, or just excess toxicity, food stored in their body. So it's okay to assume even in a lethargic state. I'm really glad you brought this up, Lana, that like even in a lethargic state, if you dig deep enough and like go back far enough, is this a pattern? Because COVID was fascinating in terms of response or responsibility or reaction or proactivity, right? Because some people were just like glass half full whole time, right? And they were able to step into opportunities that didn't exist for them before and enjoy the dramatic changes that were happening, or find joy still in living and life and a new day. And other people, and a lot of businesses crashed. I mean, tons of businesses crashed. I heard like 40% of the restaurants in New York will not make it. Like it's absurd. It's absurd. Like industries crashed, and there's a reality to that. And some people can take something and pivot, and other people get crushed. So what's the difference, Yeah. Even with like how school's running at home, like people that have kids at home and now it's homeschool or online school and they have to work from home. And it's like, it's right. Very, very challenging times. But it's in many ways, it's a measure of how grounded the parasympathetic nervous system really is. Right. It's like, it's a bit of reckoning day for everybody. Like, how am I really doing with that? Yeah. So thanks, Lana. I would definitely just treat that as overwhelm. Yeah. I had this one gal, she had no aim. And so when there's lethargy without prior hyperactivity and there's no aim, that's how you know. Like, that's how you know that that's what you're dealing with. But exhaustion, if there's prior exhaustion and there's no aim, that's different. That's more of a vata driven or a pranic crash. Yeah. But again, like I've seen a lot of zebras that need to be inspired by their aim. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of that. And some of that's cultural too. Right. Okay. Anyone else? Question, comments?
This is Brenda.
Hey, Brenda.
Hi. I just want to talk a little bit because this was such a major thing for me when I came into Body Thrive with the overwhelm, and I still hit on it as I'm stepping up to leadership. But the one thing that helped me whenever I was coached was to start off the coaching, even if it's just for a few minutes, to center them, ground them, long exhale, just even if it's just a couple minutes. It oftentimes just pulling all the pieces of yourself back into yourself and grounding the energy down. And that a lot of times was all I needed to listen to the coaching and not be in 20 different directions.
Yeah. Great advice. Yep.
And then whenever I coach, I've been doing a lot more focusing them on grounding and on breathing, because those were the two things that probably helped me more than anything else.
Amen. Yeah. Right. Because you can't, I mean, if you don't shift the way the prana is flowing, then you can't help the mind organize. And preceding that, the mind is going to organize if the body's grounded. Yeah. Great. I stopped doing that, didn't I? I stopped doing centerings before. Do you guys think I should do those before my coaching calls? Or not? I'm kind of resistant to it because I'm kind of like, I want people to be ready for action. Like I want people to do that before they show up, but I think I might need to be more explicit about that. So I'll take Brenda, I'll take that as a hint. And then just to say that too, if there's a number of people that are showing up to a coaching call with you and you just can feel it, like there's a lot of overwhelm, stop and lead a breathing grounded exercise. Absolutely. You always have the right to do that. Just like, okay, we're going to actually take a moment and collectively exhale. Yeah. So good. Such a good, and it can be worth, especially if it's if it's 1 minute out of a 60-minute session or 75-minute session, like it's just a minute. It's just a minute. All right. Anything else or are we good? Yeah. Linda. Hi.
Hi. Just a comment on where I tend to go down the rabbit hole with overwhelm. I'm just realizing it's my propensity to compare myself with others. And I can get wrapped up in that whole, look what everybody's doing. So I've got so much to do to get all that. And I'm just thinking that might be a factor that plays into why people feel overwhelmed. And so their attention is scattered because they want it all. I do. Yeah.
And that's the rungs, right? That's like leaping too big a rung or wanting to be, it's the wanting to be on top of the ladder rather than being okay with where you're at, looking up and being like, oh, there's some ladder to climb.
Yeah. And everybody else seems to get it, but
everyone else is higher up the ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this goes back to the gap and the gain, right? Of from Dan Sullivan's work of like, if you're constantly focused on the gap between you and higher up the ladder, closer to your goal, and you're not looking back down the ladder and seeing how far you've come, you're not going to be grounded because how far you've come is actually connected to the ground. The ladder's on the ground, right? And so if someone's chronically focused on, and that's why I love the questions like what's working, what's not working. Like there's the goal, what's working. So we're going to start with what's working. Why? Because you want to focus on the gain first. That's grounded. It's grounded to focus on the gain first. Then you can focus on the gap. And then it's important too to tell stories about, or have other members share stories of being exactly where that person was then. What I learned in marketing, I learned this from Ali Brown and James Roche like a long time ago. And they were talking about how like in testimonial videos, if you're going to have like, this is so insightful, and it's very insightful in coaching. So if you want to show someone's progress, that's a testimonial video. I was here, now I'm there, thanks to this. So you pull stories of people that like should have failed, essentially. We're like way beginners. Like you don't showcase your experts, you showcase your beginner's progress. You showcase your beginner's progress. It's the same concept we use in peer mentoring, is like someone that's just a little bit ahead of you or a little bit behind you, instead of someone that's like, scales of magnitude living in a different stratosphere. So what that might look like if, say there's someone who has chronic headaches, who drinks coffee and wine and is pretty pitta workaholic type, very common, right? Just like go, 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 hit the wine button to relax, then has trouble sleeping once they hit perimenopause, right? Then has trouble with weight gain because wine's full of sugar and calories, and right, they're in that. Now, if they hear of someone that's like, oh my gosh, I was just where you were 6 months ago. And now I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I'm not drinking wine at night. Like, I don't even know who I am. And neither does anyone else, because like I used to go through 5 bottles a week. Right. And now this person hears that and they're like, that was 6 months ago. Okay. Wow. And it's hard because that still seems really, really hard, but now at least it seems doable. And then you can also ask that same person, like, well, what things have you done? And even they've gotten into a coaching group. Like, that's huge. It's huge. They're showing up with people that are making changes instead of people that are like, wine's good for you. Right? Because there's plenty of those people around. Oh, menopause. It's just what happens. It's just the change. Get used to it. Aging sucks. Right? Because that's their other reality. Is those reinforcing, they've taken some action. That's the gain. That's the gain. Now, okay, you're here, just relax. This is what happens. Because we'll name her Sophie. Sophie will say, who quit drinking wine after month 5 in the coaching group, right? And now is like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who I am because I drink water at night or I drink tea at night and I do these practices and I'm discovering joy and having honest conversations, and my life is better than it was when I was drinking all that wine. And, the person who's not there yet and is overwhelmed is listening to that. And they're like, oh, so that happens in here. And then if you can reinforce the message of like, you can just be here and relax. You can just like tune into our frequency, tune into our radio station. That's what I always tell new members. It's just like, if you're overwhelmed, just hang out in here, hang out in the soup. You'll become the soup. Hang out in the crock pot. You'll become the sauerkraut, right? Like just be in here and relax and you'll get it because it's all we do, right? That's all we do in here is help each other grow. So it'll happen. We don't know when like it'll start to click for you, but we know it will. So you did the hard work, and you guys have heard me say this before, like you did the hard work, like you got it, you got in the group and you're showing up and you're listening, you're tuning into the frequency. All right. Thank you all. It was really a pleasure having this conversation around, I'm so glad we did it around addressing overwhelm. Yeah. Great comments and questions.